Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today I have two guests. That means I must be moving up if I can have two at one time. I have Coach McLeod and Coach Rodriguez. They are the host of their own podcast, The Meshpoint, which you guys all probably heard of. I'm the spread guy, so they might give me some crap, which is fine. I'm here to learn. It's all good. It's all good. Um, I I'm so grateful that you guys came on my lonely little podcast here. It's nothing too major, so I appreciate it. Um, could you guys please introduce yourself to anybody who may not know who you are? Coach
Tony, go
McLeod first, or
You want me to go first, Coach?
Sure, Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Tony Rodriguez. I'm originally from Tampa, Florida, and I just finished up my 13th year coaching. I'm actually here in Alabama, Enterprise High School, just finished up the year. And I coached a lot down in Tampa at a school called East Bay High School and Riverview High School, and got into coaching basically because it was a passion of mine, you know what I mean? Something I was passionate about. I always had fond memories of a high school experience, and really admired my coaches and kind of wanted to model after them and go down that path. And I thought about doing other things before, like being an electrician or joining the Army. I just didn't get me on fire, like, working with kids and recreating. My whole life, I think I was out recreating, playing whatever sport, was in season. You know what I mean? So it's just something I'm passionate about, and that's kind of how I got started. So, Coach McLeod.
All right, well, Matt McLeod. I'm originally from a little small town outside of Clemson called 6 Mile. So I went to Daniel High School and came from an educator family. My mom taught high school chemistry. If you've ever seen the movie Radio, right? So my mom, T.L. Hanna, my mom taught at that high school for many, many, many years, high school chemistry. And then I got to Clemson and I was playing football and thought I wanted to be a wildlife biologist. And then, really what I wanted to be is Department of Natural Resources officer, right? I thought it'd be cool, right, to kind of police the game, but then also have a chance to go fishing too, right? So I thought it was like the best job ever. And then had a professor tell us that like the median age of those guys was like 50. And then he was like, just reflect, you're like 20, right? So you got to wait 30 years for that type of job to come open. And then so I, thought about that for a little bit, took a hard left and went over to the education department at Clemson, graduated degree in education. And then, I had some influential coaches, right, growing up, and originally thought I wanted to coach high school football. I was fortunate enough to start coaching at Clemson early and spent a lot of years coaching college football. And then, my wife and I was here at William & Mary, which is why I'm in Williamsburg currently, Virginia. And I was at William & Mary, and my wife fell in love with Williamsburg and family's here. And so we put down some permanent roots, and now I'm a PE, driver's ed teacher, assistant coach at Lafayette High School here in town, and get a chance to work with some guys that I coached with at William Murray, and that's been a very rewarding experience for me. So we have a good time. So that's kind of how I got into it and where I'm at now. Been a lot of years.
yeah, it feels like a lot of years for me. I'm on year 12, and my hair's falling out, white's popping up somewhere, and knees are cracking, and this and that. I just turned 30 last week, so everything's a little popping now. It's a little getting a little older.
I think I'd probably trade you for 30 right now, though.
You're not the first person to tell me that, so there must be something behind that.
Yeah, you'll see.
Now, was that a rough Notre Dame game for you in Clemson, or was that just an exciting game?
Yeah. Well, hey, look, man. No, you're good, dude. It's all good. Look, we had played two Catholic schools back to back, man. You know what I mean? That's tough sledding for anybody. I don't care who you are. So, joking aside. It was a good game, right? I went to overtime, got some free football out of it. We didn't come out on top, and that's all right. We'll be fine. And I was glad for a good game, and we get some guys healthy, it'll be another good game, to be honest with you, because I don't know that Notre Dame will lose. Hopefully they don't screw up and do what they normally do and mess up and lose to somebody they shouldn't. You know what I mean? So hopefully they keep winning and we keep winning and we'll meet again. And then, hey, see what happens, right? That's what it's about.
Right.
Listen, Coach won't say it. I'm going to say it, right? The Heisman Trophy award winner was not playing that night, right? Let's just be honest, call it like it was, right? But that,
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean,
best games I've ever seen, though. It was an instant classic. Let's
I just
agree on
couldn't help myself.
yeah, no, I mean, look, I was impressed with Notre Dame being able to stop ETN, to be honest with you. I mean, he hadn't really been stopped all year. So I thought they had a great game plan, to be honest. And so, hey, it's all right. When you do a draw in the regular time and you get some, overtime, who knows, right? So
Clemson wins that game 9 times out of 10, and that one time they didn't. They'll see each other in the championship. I said they're going to see each other again, and Clemson's going to be Clemson. But you know what? Good for Notre Dame for finally getting a win. I guess they needed that.
Yeah. No, they did. They did. As much as I say it was at our expense, but they did need it.
I mean, it was a great game to watch as a fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And ETN, the running back, oh my God, man, he's special. I mean, he might win half of the Heisman. You know what I mean? He's a dynamic player. Awesome.
Yeah. No, they did a great job containing him, I thought. So definitely.
And then who's the quarterback's name?
Trevor Lawrence or the young kid?
The young kid. He looks fantastic.
Oh yeah. Big Cinco. That's his nickname.
There you go.
I can't say his name. I'm just like the young gun. I can't say his name.
Yeah, it's all right.
Because you have 400 some passing yards.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's stepped in, done a great job. Definitely, if you're sitting there thinking as a coach, right, you got, one of the best players, I mean, in all of football, sitting the bench with COVID, right? And you got a kid who's a true freshman. You got to feel pretty good about your future based on watching that kid play a few games. So.
And didn't Clemson have a few defensive guys out too? They had a few
Yeah. So
it's kind of the story of football.
We gotta. What's that, Tony?
It's kind of the story of football right now. I know it's a little different across America. Everybody's got different rules. We were just talking about that before we came on. I don't know how you deal with it as a coach. You know what I mean? But it's adversity, and you preach about handling adversity. So you don't want to use that as an excuse. You know what I mean? But everybody's kind of going through that. I know at a high school team, one of my buddies I just talked to, he was about to lose one of his tackles, stud offensive lineman, right? And the athletic director came in there and measured with a tape measure, and he was just 1 inch over 6 foot, so he got to stay and play because they have to be 6 foot. If they're within 6 foot, they got to go home and quarantine. If somebody, you guys know what I'm talking about. So
yeah.
It was like Thursday. The game's Friday. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a new dynamic people are dealing with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's hard to coach. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I was talking to Brian Gallagher today on the phone up at Boonton, and he in New Jersey they didn't do playoffs this year, right? So what they did is you played six, and then they paired you with a team that's like your same level, right? But they could not from a wins and losses standpoint, right? Not from a population standpoint. So he ended up playing last week. They ended up playing the team they played last year in the finals in the state championship. And then this next week they play I think they're Division 4. They play the Division 5 state champion next week from last year. So, but his point he was making was, he's like, I hate to say this, but man, it's been tough. It's, it's like, you wake up every day with this kind of feeling in your gut, right? Is this the day that's going to be the day I can't get the coach, right? That they're going to shut it all down. It's going to get shut down, right? And so, he's like, that whole gut-wrenching feeling all year has been really difficult. And he's like, we don't have anybody the building's not open. They're virtual. So if it like rains the day they have practice, right? They can't have practice. They can't go inside. So they have to have Zoom meetings and things like that. So Yeah, it's been tough. But hey, at least they got to play. At least Tony got to have a season. You Stockton and I are sitting here waiting for the spring. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got some contact days. We were allowed 20 days in like between September and October. And the head coaches, some kid in his class got COVID, but they're all virtual. And one of the things he brought up was, well, if they were in here right now, I would have to quarantine for 10 days. So
Yeah.
who's going to be the head coach? Well, the OC
Right.
would. But then what if he was around a kid? Well, then who's next up? Who's going to know the plays? Who's going to know the signals or whatever?
It's a
And
guy
so he was,
that always yells, "Throw the ball!" Yeah, that guy gets to be the coordinator for the game.
well, it's have to fall on me again. And I'm like, oh, you don't want that now. We don't want me to be doing. I'm the line guy. We're not doing that. We're going to run power every play. That's what's going to happen. Power or mesh, one of the two is going to happen. And but there was a coach. I don't know if it was Illinois or somewhere. He got one of those crane things that went up in the air, those tree things, and he had COVID. He went up in there. He's like, I'm way above everybody, and he coached the game from up there.
That's awesome.
He had they put the plastic or the things around him, and he went up there with his headset on and called the plays. Then they had to wait for everybody to leave the stadium before he could come down because he didn't want to give it up. And I told him, I was like, they're going to do that. Somebody's going to do that here. I know it. Somebody's going to do it.
Yeah. Well, some of the links we go to coach a football game.
But I know I was watching the Florida-Arkansas game this weekend. My son goes to the University of Florida, and the head coach for Arkansas was out. So the OC had to be the head coach, because he had the COVID or whatever. He had to watch from home. But I don't know. You think about all the coaches in the NFL with those shields on, right? It kind of looks like they're in a daggum bubble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they're going scuba diving down deep. You know what I mean? Something.
Yeah. Well, I also think it brings up an interesting point, right? So if you think about your staff dynamic and how it's made up, right? As a head coach, you really have to prepare your staff. I mean, those guys, like you said, your head coach gets from a contact tracing standpoint, gets COVID, right? You've got to make sure your staff knows what they're doing and knows your expectations so that they can step right in, right? It's just like we ask kids to step up when a kid gets hurt. So we got to do the same thing as coaches, not miss a beat. And I think that's a sign of a good football coach, in a good program. You don't miss a beat when that stuff happens. You know what I mean? And so it brings up some interesting ideas of how to get your whole program established and prepared and on the right track. And maybe due to COVID, that's helped a lot of coaches out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Coach, did you see Gene Chizik was on Twitter this morning or something, made a statement? I saw he was commenting about, was it Muschamp? Will Muschamp?
Oh, yeah. He got let go at South Carolina. Yeah.
Is that fair? And then think about it in terms of high school. My high school in this county versus the next county, local governments are making rules and laws different, right? And so we talked about this a long time ago, was like, a school that's been practicing, and then now you get to play a school that, is further behind. That's not fair, right? It's totally different. And so there's no parity this year. I think people just need to be more relaxed with the expectations, I guess. You know what I mean? Like you said earlier, just being able to play and have a positive season for the kids, so they have memories. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. It kind of lessens the importance of winning, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think if you reflect back to the first game of the year with Navy and BYU, right, that just goes to show you, right, Utah's whole COVID response was completely different than Maryland's. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It showed. It showed. So I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, you can't be mad at Navy. You know what I mean?
No, they did with the best they could.
Yeah.
Yep.
What were they, the cleanest program? They said they were the cleanest program, and they just weren't touching, and it showed. But I mean, they were healthy, so you had to pick.
Yeah,
I know he took a lot of crap, Coach Ken, because they didn't live tackle and live block. They were blocking bags and donuts and tackling donuts and stuff like that. So, but it's just unpreventable, man. You got to take those safety measures. I agree with you guys.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about the coaching thing because when I was OC, I signaled everything in. Nobody else did it. Like that was me because you never thought I was not going to be there. Now that you're bringing that up, like we talked about, like who's going to call the head coach is our defensive coordinator. So who's going to coach the defense? Well, he's teaching a guy. Well, then what if he goes down too? So you have to have a backup for a backup for a backup.
Yeah.
And then like me behind the OC, I have to know what he's going to do, how to practice it, and then this and that. And we're talking more, like it's virtual, but we're talking, we're figuring it out all summer. That's what we did. And this is the new normal. I think this virtual stuff's going to be a new normal. Like, why get together on a Sunday for 3 hours? You can watch film and see each other for an hour on Zoom.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Plus, I think when you look at positives from it, right? Maybe you've communicated more than you ever have. Just listen to you talk. Mm-hmm. So, and that's not a bad thing.
Spend more time with your family and stuff like that too. I mean, that's been amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To be able to do that. But it's going to be really expensive to fundraise for one of them glass cranes, like you said. So you coach from that.
Yeah. The plexiglass cherry picker, right?
Somebody might donate for free advertisement. They'll be like, "Oh, this is our tree cutting service. Like, look at this. What we do for you?" And somebody will do it.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of heights, so don't put me up there.
Yeah, exactly.
If they told me to go up there to watch the box, I'm like, nope, you can fire me. I'm scared of heights. I'm not going up there. You pay me $10,000 more, I might think about it. But besides that, no. See, this is the Joe Rogan podcast. See, we just start talking. It's fine.
I know. That's three football coaches, right? We could talk for hours.
Oh, goodness. That's why sometimes I have to cut it off. Like, oh, we could go on for 3 hours on one topic.
Yeah, no doubt.
So how'd you guys start your? So I've been talking to so many coaches. There's so many podcasts. There's so much stuff, and I try to watch people's stuff and listen. I try to listen to 2 new ones a day. Like I listened to one of your guys's today, and then Coach Sheffer had one because I'm on his a lot, so I had to listen to one of his. And then I talked to another coach. I got to listen to his the next day. So don't be afraid.
Which one did you listen to out of curiosity? I'm just curious.
Of his, I missed one of his program.
Of ours. I'm just
curious. I listened to the first one. I wanted to listen to the first one. I went back.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's the worst one. That's about us.
I had to know before. I had to do my research.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Yeah, we're just giving you a hard
time. So how'd you guys come up with your guys' podcast and your stuff? And how'd you come up with such a good name? My name is terrible, but I just stuck with it. So you came up with a good name and a good podcast. So how'd you guys come up with that and all that?
Coach, you want to talk about how we kind of developed the podcast? I'll talk about the name.
Yeah, you talk about the name. So I have a website called flexbonenation.com, right? And Tony runs a Twitter chat every Mondays during the off season for option coaches, right? So we had been, for years going back and forth talking about option stuff. And, he wrote articles from my blog on my website and then we'd go back and forth on Meshpoint Monday. And we were up talking about, I think mid-triple late one night. And Tony was like, hey, we just sat here and talked about this whole thing. We should get together and do a podcast and get it out for the benefit of not only us, for everybody, And I was like, yeah, that's actually a good idea. And then we kind of started brainstorming, and it boiled down to the fact that Tony and I felt like from a professional development standpoint, it would help us be better coaches, you know what I mean? By having people on that we could learn from. And, we started off with the people we knew, right? The people willing to come on and gut it out with you for those first couple till you can figure it out and understand, right? And so, we grabbed people we knew and just talked some ball, and, I just kind of went from there. But, I think, Tony and I had a relationship before we started it, and it just has, blossomed from there, I would say. So.
I agree. As far as the name goes, Meshpoint is kind of like associated with triple option football. You know what I mean? Whether you run a midline, inside veer, outside veer, you're always talking about the Meshpoint, and it's just a staple part of the option game. And I was doing a Twitter chat, and like Coach said, it's called Meshpoint Monday. And what we would do is everybody's reply, so that everybody could read it, we would put hashtag Meshpoint at the end. And so I would put a question out and put a hashtag Meshpoint out there, and you could search it. You could search everybody's replies through that hashtag. And so we're like, what are we going to call the podcast? Well, we already use hashtag Meshpoint. Why not the Meshpoint? You know what I mean? And it just kind of took off from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know there's a clinic called the Meshpoint up there in Pennsylvania, but we borrow from each other. It's all football. It's all good. Yeah. But that's pretty much how it came to be. So.
Yeah, it's better than me. I made mine back in February. And I was like, something with coaching. Oh, sidelines. Let's just go with that. And then I realized how stupid it was. But I was like, I already typed it in. I'm not changing it. It's too late now. We got to stick with it.
I think it's good. I mean, I think look, you're trying to relate to football, right? I mean, what word relates to football better than sidelines, right? You're a coach, you're on the sideline, you're coaching. You're good, dude. I think it's great.
Hey, Coach, is this a PG podcast or is it PG-13 rated R? Like, have you decided
whatever
yet?
you want. Whatever you want it to be, I can make it happen. That's how flexible I am.
I don't want to break rules, man. You know what I mean? We had a guy break a rule on our podcast before, so we're no longer a PG podcast. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and I forgot to edit it out. How about that? Yeah.
So, I was gonna say you could have came up with the slap dick podcast, like what is that, Coach Jason from the
Coach
last chance? Coach Brown, Jason Brown.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could have been worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Nah, I think you're on it.
13, all right.
But that works for him. He's got a cigar now. He's got a whiskey. And I had a coach on here from Last Chance U on his staff that second season on the show. He wasn't on the camera a lot. He coaches in Wisconsin now at a private high school. And when I first ever talked to him, I talked to him in April, I think. He just wanted to talk ball. He would not answer a lot of my questions. He was like, I don't want to say nothing about Last Chance U. Then on the podcast, he was like, I don't care anymore. You can ask me whatever, but I'm not going to talk bad about anybody. You can ask me whatever. And my first question, is Coach Brown exactly like it shows? And he goes, he's worse. Like the stuff he says was worse than what they show.
Golly.
And I couldn't record what he told me, some of the things he said. And I was like, oh, okay. But he goes, but that's who he is. That's truly who that guy is. So he's like, what you see is who he is. And I said, well, that's kind of good, I guess. Like it's fine.
Yeah. Well, it's a true representation.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was nothing fake about it. And
yeah.
No, I made this to be like an ESPN thing. Like I love talking sports. It was just going to be a general thing. And then COVID happened. So there was no sports. There was nothing to do.
Yeah.
And then Coach Sheffer tweeted one day, I'm looking to start a podcast. So I sent him a thing like use Anchor just because it's free. You can do whatever. And then he had me on his for his program profiles and his just shot through the roof. And I was like, I'm taking all the credit for your podcast because I told you how to do it.
Yeah.
And he started to get coaches on. So I was like, I'm going to step up and get coaches on. So that's how I started to do it. But mine was, I still do my ESPN thing. Like Sundays, me and my two friends do a college football recap on Sundays. I do my Chicago Bears sadness minute because I'm getting tired of watching them. And so I slowly get coaches on and it's building those relationships. I'm learning something. And during COVID and stuff, there's nothing, it's free therapy in my opinion. We need to start charging people. Like this is free. We can start charging to start talking.
Well, I think too, like
that's good, you know?
Yeah. And it brings the world and shrinks it down, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're in Illinois, I'm in Virginia, Tony's in Alabama, right? So we would never probably have a chance to meet otherwise. So it's pretty neat, you know?
Yeah, like on Coach Sheffer's first one, I'm in Illinois, Sheffer's in Virginia, Banstra's in Ohio, and then Bennett's in South Carolina. So you had the whole circle right there of like,
Right.
this would never happen unless we had podcast or Zoom or any
Yep.
Twitter even. Like you would never have
Yeah.
this stuff
Right.
without that. And so that's why I tell people social media is good or bad. And I chose the good side. Like, let's use
Yeah.
it for this.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We totally agree. It's definitely a tool to help connect, make connections, make friends, talk ball, you know. It's been fun. And you got to find a positive from all of this, you know. So, definitely.
See, I told you I see something shiny, and that's where I'm gonna go. Some shinies over there and start talking. But
That's all right.
All right. We're good. We're enjoying it.
so have you guys always coached in like a flexbone option offense, or you guys ever coached in something else? And like, how did you decide like the flexbone and stuff is our offense? This is what I love. Like, what came down to that?
Yeah. So, all right. So I played in a split back Veer offense. I got to Clemson and played primarily on defense till a couple years senior year, and then we were an I option team. And then, you know, at that point, started coaching defensively, and I mean, we played Air Force, okay, and I mean, you know, this was back in the 90s, right? So zone dive wasn't a thing, and anyway, we felt like we had a pretty good game plan, right? So, and it was as tight as a tick at halftime. And man, they just came out and used a lot of formations, same type plays, but different formations, and they just gutted us. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, you know, I think at that time, you know, my perfect thought of an offense was, you know, two back, power, counter, ISO. You know what I mean? Trap. And then it kind of morphed into kind of like what Stanford was doing with the unbalanced line stuff and still running power, right? You know, and then that, you know, and then you start thinking back to, you know, if you really could boil it down to something you felt like you really had a hard time defending, what is that? You know what I mean? And every time I asked myself that question, that Air Force game came up. So to answer your question, no, I've coached other stuff, but you know, for me, what gave me the most fits was any kind of option concept. So, you know, that started building it from there, and that's kind of where I am. And Tony's got a little different path,
Yeah,
than me, but I just, you know, when you boil it down and you look at it, it's difficult to defend. As long as you're able to, as a coach, as long as you're able to practice correctly and understand what your deficits are and your weaknesses are and how to overcome them. And other than that, it's like anything else. So.
yeah. I mean, biggest thing, we're ambassadors. You know what I mean? I think we're both in situations right now where maybe we're not running Flexbone to a T, you know, every play, but we're ambassadors of this offense because we know it works, and it can be dominant, and you can win championships with it. You know what I mean? So my situation is in high school, I played for 3 different head coaches in my high school career. It was a revolving door, you know? And my junior year, we were a wishbone team. And then my senior year, we ran split back Veer, you know? And so that's kind of how I got into option a little bit there. And then whenever I graduated college and started coaching high school ball, I actually went back to my old high school and started coaching, and they were a wishbone team. So I kind of come up through the wishbone system. And kind of a funny story is after my first year of coaching, I was like, man, I just don't think this offense is for me, you know? And I sat down with the coach and I'm telling him, man, I think I'm more of like a West Coast offensive guy. I thought I knew it all, you know what I mean? 20 something years old or 30, however old I was. And I just think that's so funny because he gave me some wisdom, you know what I mean? And I coached some JV ball and just learned the system, you know, and just balled in. You know, at the end of the day, that's what you got to do. And it actually changed my mind completely about how I see the offense. You know what I mean? I saw it more like, you know how you see Peyton Manning, you think about Peyton Manning, he's out there like the general, man. He's audible and he's in control. That's kind of how I see the option game, now that I've learned it, you know what I mean, and been in it. So it allows you to get that pin last, that chalk last, you know what I mean, and get you guys into the right play and your athletes the ball. And there's a lot you can do with it. Control the clock, there's nothing like running the ball down a team's throat and being able to dominate them. You know what I mean? It's just the list goes on and on. About the positives about it. You know what I mean? But that's kind of something I had to learn. You know what I mean? I was real hesitant, and then once I just trusted it. Okay, I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna go all in and learn it. I fell in love. And then my old head coach retired, and then we evolved it to the Flexbone. We learned, what Georgia Tech was doing in Navy, the Paul Johnson and stuff like that. And then we had some success. And then years later, we actually evolved into like some GTO type stuff, gun triple option. And so learning to incorporate, you mentioned power earlier, you know what I mean? And some zone a little bit, just stuff like that. And then the last 2 seasons, I've been stuck in the damn Tony Franklin system. You know what I mean? Which drives me nuts, right? Because I'm a run guy, and but I tell you what, as a coach, I'm just appreciative of the opportunity to grow and learn, and that even though it may not be the system I love and prefer, if I was the head man, it's there were some positives I learned from it. Like I learned how to coach pass protection better. I learned about screens. I didn't really know screens very well, I'll be honest with you. You know what I mean? And so I took those positives. And then this year, being an enterprise, we ran it all, man. So under center, gun, you name it, we probably ran it, man. I'm just telling you. So, but at the end of the day, option was a main staple of the success that we had. And I'm a believer in it, man. So it's just, you have lesser talent, it's an equalizer. You know what I mean? And I'm a big believer in using angles. You know what I mean? I don't think people talk enough about using angles. It's tried and true, man. You know what I mean? We're not going to ask a guy that's outweighed or smaller, outmatched to, try to move somebody. You know what I mean? We're going to position them and use our leverage, and you can win that way. Teams win year in and year out using angles. So I'm a big believer in that kind of stuff. And then if you can't block them, read them, baby. So we're just, at the end of the day, Coach McLeod and I, we're just ambassadors of triple. You know what I mean? Just all things triple, man. Love it. And RPOs are not included in that, by the way.
You just took the words out of my mouth there.
Don't even say it, man. Because if you drop that shit, that's an incomplete pass. I'm just saying.
That's right. That's right.
Well, that's why I'm shocked you guys are here. I'm the spread guy out of that other podcast. I'm the spread guy, so it's.
No, it's all good, Coach. We trust me. We enjoy a good smattering of passing.
Yeah,
we do.
Well, that's the thing. They give me a hard time, but I still run the ball. I would love to run the ball. I'm an offensive lineman. I love running the ball. Right. But I love the air raid passing concepts because they're so easy to know. Yeah. But I'm still going to run the ball, if that makes sense. Like I have something to pass it with. I'm also going to run the ball. But I grew up in the option. Like I always tell them, it's weird. It's kind of an inverted flexbone when I was in high school. Like I tell you, if you picture the Maryland I formation, tight end on the right side, wide receivers on the left, you got your running backs and stuff. Instead of being a straight line, the H-back right in front of the tailback, he's either shifted over to the right or the left. And that was like our base formation. So we ran 10 option, 12 option. Like that's what we called it. So your midline, your regular, speed option. We would run lead and power. Like that's what I grew up in. I grew up in that.
Yeah.
I coach at my high school in that same offense. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I couldn't call it the flexbone. He's like, it's not the flexbone. It's something else. I'm like, no, this is. Once I got older, I was like, this is flexbone, inverted wing T stuff. Like, this is what's happening, whether he wants to admit it or not. If my coach is listening, I'm sorry, but that's what it was. And, And I thought that's what I was going to do forever. Then I coached in the pro style a little bit, which I hated because you have everything in it. Absolutely everything has to be in a pro style.
Yeah.
Then recently I've been in a spread. So now I'm a spread person. Like we've had a lot of success. But last year we ran Auburn's type offense.
Mm-hmm.
H-back, tight end, power read,
11
trap.
personnel.
Yeah.
What was that?
Jet
11
read.
personnel.
Yeah.
And then the year before that, I was a spread team. We only ran 2x2 and 3x1, and that was it. That was it. We went 10-1. That was it. So either one works. I'm not knocking option or whatever Coach
Yeah.
Sheffer and them say. I don't hate the option. I absolutely love it. But I still have dreams of teaching the quarterback reads when I coached high school. I was all offensive line, but sometimes I'd help out the quarterback. There's only like 4 of us at a small high school. So I still remember just jumping in there like, no, this is what you do. You open up to 10 o'clock and all this, and you do this and paint it on the lines.
Yeah.
I have dreams about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's well, look,
And,
as a line coach, anytime you get to step back and help the quarterbacks, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah, and it's funny, when I was OC, I had to coach quarterbacks one year. And at first I loved it. I was like, this is easy. I could just stand here. They're just throwing to each other or whatever. And after a while, I was like, this is boring. You guys don't hit. You don't do nothing.
Yeah.
But it's funny. We ran inside zone, so they had to read the ends, and I went back to my old days. I'm like, no, you step here, you're reading this. And then if their 3 tech was the guy that was really good, I adjusted, said, that's who we're reading now. So I'd get real
Right.
fancy with it. Now you open up this way, and I'm like, oh, it's coming back to me. Like all this under center stuff's coming back. Or line up in the pistol and do it. That pistol trap worked great for us. And I was like, it's coming back to me how you have to open up. Like
That's
it was
right.
all,
Yeah.
you never forget.
No.
There's some similarities and carryover for sure. Absolutely. I know. I was talking with somebody today. They were asking me about inside zone. I think that's probably going to be a play where a lot of people don't want to run that are under center guys. You know what I mean? Of course, that's changing. I mean, look at Air Force this year, right? They were under center running some inside zone. But I just think that the style of play that the offensive linemen play with in the inside zone, running the inside zone scheme versus, like a gap or Veer type scheme, you know what I mean? Like it's completely different. The stance is different. The attitude is different. The pace is different. And so I think that's kind of where the line in the sand is probably for most guys, you know what I'm saying? But I'm a believer that you can, with last year, the big sexy thing was duo, right? The duo scheme. And I think that people look at that as power without a pull. It's a gap scheme, right? To me, I think it's really like inside zone, you know what I mean? And it's just, I don't know. I'm just saying that I think that you can block it in a manner that's aggressive, you know what I mean? You don't have to be in a 2-point stance, you know what I mean? I still think under center teams and gun teams that want to run the ball can run it like duo, you know what I mean? They can run inside zone and call it duo. How about that? That's what I'm trying to say. And say, well, we're gapping it. You know what I mean? It's not zone. You know what I mean? Whatever. But I just think that it's good stuff. You know what I mean? I used to always be real rigid. Oh, nope, can't be in the gun. You know what I mean? But I've changed over the years. I mean, Navy has too, and these other academies, and their mindset has kind of changed. They're doing some cool things out of the gun too. You know what I mean? But I think at the end of the day, under center, it's tried and true, and nothing hits faster than under center. You know what I mean? So we're kind of teasing, man. We're not, it has to be we're all things option and all things triple. You know what I mean? So, but I know we were talking about this the other day, me and Coach McLeod. He was trying to make me choose, man.
Yeah, I was trying to hold your feet to the fire, man.
Yeah. But what'd you ask me again, man?
I said, if you're a head coach right now, what you running, man? You going under center? You going gun? You try to give me the politically correct. Well, I do a little this, a little that. No, make right. That's what you got to be as a head coach. Yeah.
If I'm held a gun to your head now, what are you running?
Yeah. Yeah.
Under center Flexbone, With a small gun package. There you go.
Yeah.
Very compromised.
Yeah. Hey, it's like I said, you'll be like Kelly Lee out at Eastern.
That's right.
That's them, and they do a great job. So
That's
It's funny
right.
you brought up Inside Zone. I put up a picture on Twitter the other day, and I talked about on a Coach Salas's thing. My inside zone looks like duo. We're just not blocking the end. And the reason why we did that a couple years ago at a school I was at, and the reason why is because our offensive linemen were not athletic enough to go block that linebacker one-on-one.
right.
Everybody thinks inside zone is stepping to the right or left and going up. We said, why don't we just get double teams, screw blocking the linebacker, just push them back 4 yards. And the old line to me is like, yes, 4 yards a pop. I'm fine with it. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
And so I drew it up and I put it on Twitter. Oh my goodness. No, that's this. No, that's this. No, that's that. And I was like, I just started a war. I was just asking. Because
All the experts came out of the woodwork, right?
Because I was on Coach Banstra's show or his YouTube, and then we were just poking fun. Like I said, this is my inside zone. He goes, no, that's duo. And I was like, no, this is my inside zone. I don't care what you call it. To me, if I call the play, this is inside zone because I want double teams. If I want to block that end, I just call lock. So there's your duo all of a sudden. So I put that picture up, and then they started saying, well, no, it's duo. Well, no, look at the path of the run. I didn't have the running back drawn up right or something. No, look, his path is inside zone. I was like, guys, I just drew it on Huddle and put it on Twitter real quick. Like it was just,
Yeah.
I'm on remote learning. I had an hour. I was like, well, hold on a second. Like, let's.
It's funny because how we run outside Veer is the guard and tackle play side. They double and try to get the lineman into the lap of the linebacker. So it's the same kind of thing too.
Yeah.
You know, it's so many different names you can call that at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah.
But I think even like I said, under center, if you're watching the academies nowadays, you know, they're fanning backside or they're blocking back or they're reach pinning, however you want to say it, right? It's a zone away type scheme, you know what I mean? Versus I don't know if you ever heard of midline triple, right? They slice it. It's the same kind of thing where they're zoning away to there's so many different names, but I think it's just more people getting comfortable in their mind with the attitude they want their offensive line to have. You know, I think that inside zone just has a soft connotation to it. I don't know. You know, that tip of the spear stuff, man, where they got the chest up high, you know what I mean? And no leverage.
Well, I think you have to decide if you want that to be a vertical scheme, right? Or a horizontal scheme. Yeah, you know, and I guess it depends on where you insert your back, but I mean, I would envision it being a vertical scheme, like you're talking about, Coach, with your duo concept. And it's funny, you said you drop something, put it on Twitter. We do that all the time, and it gets shredded. I love it. You know, I mean, I don't take hardly anything like that personal. So, you know, and we get a kick out of it. It's like, you know, like you said, right? You had 5 minutes, you drew something up, you threw it up there to see what maybe somebody else could help you with. And 120 replies later, you're just laughing, you know. It's like, it's funny.
No, and then they said it was power without the polar, and I was like, that's not what I drew up. Like, what are you talking about? Like, because we had a variation off inside zone that is power read without the polar, and I was like, no, this what you guys are. Ohio State runs it a lot. Like they block inside zone to the left, but their right tackle is arc releasing and going up. It's power read without the polar. You just have that, and we ran that a lot.
Inverted Veer.
I'm like, that's what it is. And I was just drawing it up. I was like, are you guys going to call this duo or inside zone? It's my inside zone. And I had like 100 comments, and I was like, oh my goodness. Like,
yeah. Well, we always make it way more difficult than it needs to be. Look, football is a simple game. I mean, it really is. We make it difficult, which, you know, it is what it is, I guess. But yeah,
it could be fun. That's kind of what Meshpoint Monday, the Twitter chat I do. That's kind of the stuff we get into a little bit. You know what I mean? I'll kind of formulate questions. What do you call this? Put a clip out there, or draw something up, and then you can kind of see. It's interesting to see different people's perspective of how they do things, how they say things. That's one thing I've learned over like about 5 years of doing it. You know what I mean? It's fun. It's fun to learn. You know? People do different. You know, you study different trees. You know, Fisher DeBerry versus Paul Johnson. You know, it's different, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm starting to see. Right. Then I'm starting to see, like, we went through all the spread stuff. Now it's starting to come back. It's going backwards. You're seeing a lot of buck sweep stuff. You're seeing a lot of reading a 3-tech or a 1-tech instead of you're going back to that midline stuff out of shotgun all of a sudden.
Yep.
Because defense has caught up with a lot of the RPO stuff. Now they're going back to just doing this or doing this. And we at the high school level, we're doing that too. Like we might have an RPO in there, but it's built off of regular runs. Like we're going to do something else to get that, but we're going back to running the ball. And defenses aren't going to be able to, they have to catch back up with that. Then it's going to turn back around, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
That's why I need to get on board with what you guys are doing. So when it goes completely back, I know what's going on.
Yeah. No, it's everything's cyclical. I mean, Tony and I, we say it a lot. Like, right, football was started in the 1860s, right? Like, how much have we really invented since then? If we're sitting here in 2020, there's been stuff done way before we started. You know what I mean? So we're just stewards of the game at this point, pushing it forward. It's all going to come back around. We can't claim anything. That's for sure. So you're right. You make up a good point, right? So everything evolves based on how fast the defense can defend you. Now I'll say that till I die, right? So however fast the defense can defend you is where you go. So, and you're right. People are catching back up the RPO stuff. So it's going to go in a little different direction now. So
unless you're Mike Leach.
Unless you're correct. Unless you're going to run mesh 1,000 different ways, then you don't care.
I'm a Nick Saban fan, so I always watch Alabama. I mean, Roll Tide. So I'm in Illinois. Unfortunately, I'll bring up this a little later. It's Illinois.
Here, Coach. I'm sorry.
I swear, man, between Notre Dame and Alabama, I can't even get a break tonight. I'm kidding, man. I'm kidding.
I'm not a Bama fan. I just, if I had a nickel every time I live in Alabama now, so if I had a nickel every time I hear Roll Tide, there you go.
You could retire probably.
That's a greeting here in America, in Alabama now. Walk by somebody, Roll Tide.
Yeah.
No, because me and Nick Saban are pretty similar. Like I'm very fiery, so I'm like, I'm going to watch him, and I've read all of his books. I don't know. I like Nick Saban, and he just happens to win. I don't know what to say. And then I love Mike Leach. He's got to be the second. So people can say what he wants. He's going to run what he wants to run, and it works. Just give him a second. Just give him some time. It's going to work, regardless of what people think. He turns around programs. See, I'm going to get off topic here. He turns around programs, so just give him a couple years.
No. I mean, I think there's some. I mean, okay, so we're option guys, right? So it's like we were talking about trying to pin Tony down the other day, right? What are you going to run? What are you going to run? What are you going to run? Well, look, at the end of the day, we're option guys. We're going to run option stuff. You know what I mean? And we're not going to come off that line. You know what I mean? And so I think you bring up a good point with Leach. Like he's been his own person. His things, don't get me wrong, his offense has evolved, no doubt. But what I'm saying is that the roots of it have stayed the same, and he's not changing that course. You know what I mean? And he knows it inside and out. He teaches it to his kids, his coaches. They know it inside and out. And so you're right. You give him time, and he'll, he's going to be successful. And it just goes to show you that if you have a philosophy, you have a base way of doing things that you believe in and you're confident in, then you're going to be successful. Just like you love spread, duo, you're confident, you coach it hard, you've been successful, right? Same thing with us. And so, I think there's something to be said in today's world for not bouncing around, you know what I mean? Sticking to something you believe in, having some conviction in it, teaching it to the kids, and going through the process of building it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of giving somebody a politically correct answer, well, I'm going to do both, under center and gun. Well, no, right? Like, let's pick it and let's get convicted and let's get after it, right? So, I think you bring up a good point with that. Man, Leach, I think, is a good example. I mean, besides all the idiosyncrasies with him, right? Like all the interviews and the whatever he says, I mean, that's all great. It is, you know what I mean? But when you really get to the root of him, like this is what he's going to run. And that's his thing. So I don't know. I mean, it's not option stuff, but I like it. So,
well, I mean, he and Hal Mummy took it from that stuff. They looked at wishbone stuff and they came up with, oh, they have the if then philosophy.
Yeah.
Because people don't realize that they just blather off. I'm not trying to start anything, but people blather off. And I'm like, do you actually read Hal Mummy's stuff and Mike Leach's stuff, how they went to BYU and studied, how he did this? And
Yeah.
he looked at that stuff and they said, okay, if they can do like the key screens they took from like a rocket toss, like they were looking at it, like, how can we generate something like that just from a shotgun perspective?
Yeah.
And so he'll talk about it all day long. He's like, this is how we came up with it. And football is evolving, that it was evolving at the time. So this is how they came up with it. But people don't want to know that stuff. They want to know this, or no, it's this, or no, it's this. No, he took it from that and he'll admit it.
Yeah. Well, I think too, if you really look at what Lavelle Edwards was doing at BYU at the time, it was definitely revolutionary because, I think that offensive style kind of gets pinned to West Coast, but it really wasn't that. You know what I mean? It was more of a blend of what I guess we would call spread in today's world. You know what I mean? So it wasn't necessarily Bill Walsh derivatives, right? I mean, it was more open and more stuff. Anyway, I know what you mean. And I think, look, everything's evolved from something, right? And, and I think too, like they weren't afraid to try it, you know what I mean? And maybe that was part of it was being at Illinois Wesleyan at the time and not having to worry about stuff per se, as far as like the pressure to win and lose, like at Kentucky when they were there, right? Or like with him at Mississippi State, but I think they were, you give them credit, right? They weren't afraid to experiment and try and figure it out, and kudos for them to have the wherewithal to just say, you know what, screw it, we're going to try this and see what happens. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Not a lot of people in that position anymore.
No.
I mean, don't even get 3 years anymore, so hardly. So, even at some high schools, people don't have patience for that, So, it's interesting development.
Yeah, there was my Mike Leach. I have to sneak that in there every single time. Every single time I got to talk about Mike Leach somewhere in there and defend what's going on. But
yeah, swing your sword, baby, swing your sword.
Oh, I've read that book like 3 times. Like,
yeah.
So I'm very curious because I'm trying to remember my high school days. So with you guys, I know it's probably 2 different answers because you had 2 different schools. In a Flexbone or an option, under center, pistol, it doesn't matter. What kind of install does it look like? Like I know spread installs, how they go about it. Like the old air raid stuff is 3 days. Like it takes 3 days and then you're done. So what's an install look like for an offense like that? Like how much time? What does a practice look like? Like how I kind of remember, but I know stuff's evolved. It's changed since I was 16.
Yeah. Yeah. No, really it depends on what rabbit hole you want to go down, man. Right. So inside Veer is pretty intensive when it comes to install. The schematics of it aren't. It's a gap scheme, right? But when you incorporate what a defense could potentially do to you and how you have to counteract that, it gets pretty intensive with the tags and things you have to do, perimeter wise, some of the technique stuff. So, if you wanted to start with an option Flexbone principle, you'd identify your 5. We call it big 5. It's probably big 6 now. We'll call it big 5, right, Tony? Right? It could probably 6, but we'll call it 5, right? So that's you got to kind of start there, right? So that would be inside veer, right? Zone dive, mid double, mid triple, and rocket toss. Okay. So when you break down an install of those plays, okay, inside veer is the most intense as far as installation goes. So, it may take you 2 solid days, maybe even 3, just to get inside veer correct as far as an install goes. Now that doesn't count how you're going to practice and organize it. That doesn't count any of that. That's just, look, we're going to transfer scheme to feet on the field. You know what I mean? And then, and so what you end up trying to do is package things together that are the most similar, you know what I mean? From a install standpoint, not, I think some people maybe don't quite like a lot of people might try to package mid double and rocket together from a scheme standpoint when you call them plays in the game, right? Because if I reach with my tackle and the end runs out, well, I can reach pin and run mid double, right? Because I'm going to open B gap, right? But that's not the same as an install, right? So what you want to be able to do is take the techniques that you're an O-line guy, right? So if I'm an O-line coach and I can take the techniques on inside veer and zone dive, and I can teach those things and replicate those steps and the footworks and the aiming points for like a 3 or 4 day install, and I get inside veer and zone dive out of it, well, that's a positive, even though it may have taken those 4 days to get it done. You know what I mean? But what you've done is you've teach scoops on the backside. You've teach your play side tackle how to veer, right? And if you're cross training guys, you're teaching your center how to veer and your guard to veer. You know what I mean? So you're preparing yourself for things down the road. But I think from an install standpoint, if you can package techniques together, then it's extremely beneficial, right? So, and that has nothing to do with how you call a game. You know what I mean? So I think that sometimes gets lost in translation. But so you know, an install, you know, it's going to take some time. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to install it in 3 days and get off and go. It's not going to work like that. So you kind of have to package it, right? So inside veer and zone dive, and then work that, review it, then pop over to mid double, you know, mid triple, and then, you know, rocket. And then, you know, from there it's, you know, what am I going to do play action pass wise? What complementary plays do I need based on my own personnel? You know what I mean? And what can what can our kids handle, right? Can we go to step game? Can we do screens? Can we do, you know, you'd love to have all of it, but in reality, you got to know what your own kids can handle. So, yeah, I would say it's a lot more intensive than a 3 day install and you're done. Yep, definitely.
I agree. It's expensive, you know, running it, you know, you think about things in terms of expensive versus inexpensive. Inexpensive is like putting in a new formation, right? A new look, a shift, a motion, something like that. That's cheap. And but the option game, it can be expensive. It takes a lot of your practice time to rep all the reads and the different looks, like Coach said, and the different blocking schemes that you might have to use. So it's expensive. But I was thinking while Coach was talking about like quarterbacks nowadays going to, like you probably got a quarterback, I'm sure, because he's in the air raid or whatever. Nowadays on Twitter, you see them going to these trainers, you know, they pay the money to go to these trainers and throw, and they're getting tons and tons of reps. Back when I coached in the Wishbone, even in the Flexbone, we took pride in going to camp, going to a Wishbone camp or a Flexbone camp, you know, and we always said, like, there's no way you can replicate the amount of reads that they're going to get live that like they do in camp. It's unbelievable. Like, and so your quarterbacks can get better at it. The more they see it, the more they rep it, the more, you know. And so those are the key things that you gotta kind of simulate and get you guys good at. You know what I mean? So it's just you know, second nature. You know what I mean? It's muscle memory. No different than like I said, the pass game that those guys are going and working on to throw 52 hitch routes. You know what I mean? Whatever. But you know, we're repping reads. So it's a lot to it, man. I mean, so you hear the big five and you're thinking only five? There's a lot to it, man. You know, different presentations the defense can give you, and you want to be ready for them all. You know what I mean? And you know, once you get that stuff installed, you can kind of add to it. But you got to get the base in first. If you don't have the base down, you know, you don't have a chance to win any game. You know what I mean? A lot of the game comes down to checks too. You know what I mean? You call something, and then get up to the line of scrimmage, and now the quarterback's checking the play, and typically it's going to be to a basic play. You know what I mean? One of your big five. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have to be complicated in this system to be successful necessarily. So we
I think too. No, that's good. But I think too, once it's installed, right? I think option guys have gotten really good at boiling what practice down needs to look like, so every kid gets to see the reps they need to see. You know what I mean? So, you know, with the pods and the half lines and the inside run periods and the perimeter passing and perimeter run tied together, you can really get a lot of reps for kids to get them the looks they need to get, in an hour period. You know what I mean? And I think so yes, it's intensive maybe that first week, right?
Mm-hmm.
To that, you're boiling all this stuff down into segments, you know what I mean? And you're trying to get as many reps as you can to the kids for what they may see on Friday or Saturday night. So, it's intense, but it's only intense for a short time, I guess is what I'm trying to, right? And then after that, it's all about repping the technique and how many ways can I multiply that effect across the practice for a kid. So take a quarterback. I coach quarterbacks, right? So take a quarterback, for example, through an hour period of offense, which is individual, right? Group, segmented pods, and team, or half line, depending on what you want to do. I mean, that kid could get upwards of 80 reads in a practice. You know what I mean? If you're doing it right. So when you think about it, that's a lot of work that kid got that day. You know what I'm saying? So, it goes from expensive to simple as it goes. You know what I mean? It's just the intensive part is you got to know what you're doing. You got to know the details, and you got to be very detailed with how you teach it. You know what I mean? And then once you do that, then the practice really takes care of itself. So.
Yeah, it becomes that big muscle memory, and then it's a big investment, but then it pays. You're going to get a big payout because that kid's going to, like you said, like I love watching Navy check, because for spread guys, like, what are they checking? Well, I'm like, well, they have to see who they're going to read, or is there a dive, or is there something else? And now it's no different than when spread, if they line up a certain way, you check to something. I always laugh at that. I'm like, I know they're checking. I know they're an option team, but they can still check the line. They're still trying to figure it out. And I love watching Paul Johnson's teams back in the day, like the way they did it. It was, as a spread guy, I loved watching it.
Yeah. Well, he called a play and the quarterback had to put him in the right one. You know what I mean? So, if they were going to read mid triple or let's say mid double, because they didn't really run a whole lot of mid triple, but if they're going to call mid double, right? And they want to run to the 3, quarterback had to know that. So he just called it and then expected the guy to put him in the right spot, get everybody on the same page.
Right.
There's something to be said for that. So just got to be able to teach your kids. Tony says it all the time, and I'll give him credit for it because he says it all the time. It forces you to be a great detailed coach.
Yeah, I mean, to just expand on that a little bit more, like I remember when we ran the Flexbone, I had a really bright kid, and I would train him. I would try to set him up in practice. I would put a front up there, call a play, and, he was supposed to check the play. So I was like, okay, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? And he would do it. You know what I mean? He was I think I only got him one time, 1 or 2 times maybe. But I would always have this competition. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you today. And what that did is in the game, it built trust. And so I called the game from the box. And we could either call it the audible in from the sideline, or we just trusted the kid to get us into the correct play based on how we coached him, Yeah. And one of the coolest times would be like we would check to a little pop pass, what we call load pass, And I think we had like a 4th and 2, and I called zone dive or something. They walked up the blitz, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. This is a dumb call right here. You know what I mean? That they had brought the house safeties and everything, but my quarterback checked to that load pass, and we hit it. Boom, ripped it for a huge one. You know what I mean? So it made me look good, is what I'm trying to say. But really, it was the kid's call. His training prepared him for that situation. It got the positive result for the team. You know what I mean? So it's like I said earlier, man. It's like Peyton Manning, Omaha. He's in control.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I just think of that. You know what I mean? I love the offense for that. Being able to have the chalk last, right? Or the white marker last.
Yeah, there's no chalkboards anymore. It's got to be the marker now. There's no more chalkboards. It's or huddle. Or it's an iPad. Like whoever has an iPad.
I had to switch it up, man.
Well, like going back to Twitter, I'm all over the place, but like wing T guys hate spread guys and vice versa. And I don't get why. Because I respect triple option offenses because it's the same thing over and over. You're repping it, then you can tweak it, but it's the same thing over and over. Like you said, he knew it like the back of his hand to check to a different play. Like, oh, I know this in my dreams. And that's why I like the air raid stuff because it's the same thing. It's the same thing over and over. And that's why I don't like the I was an OC, but my head coach made me have a hodgepodge of a spread. I kid you not. I had to have 50 formations, 7 run plays, 20 pass plays, and it's just now you've become this hodgepodge and you can't practice something over and over.
Right.
So there's something to be said about offenses that are simple and they do the same thing over and over. Like embrace the boredom, I guess. And
Yeah.
but options a little different because quarterback gets to run, so it's not bored all the time. They're going to run. They got to have ice in their vein because they got to be hit. I remember teaching a quarterback, you have to run at him and then pitch it because you're going to get hit.
Yeah.
But after a while, they loved it. They wanted to hit the guy first. I was like, now remember to pitch the ball though. You can still hit him, but you got to pitch it first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, besides the obvious, like chicks dig the option more than they do the air raid, right? And if you want to sit at the cool kids table at the lunchroom, you know what I mean? You got to run triple. You know what I mean? So those two obvious things, right? If you look at the impact, and maybe I'm just crazy here, right? But if you want to look at the impact that your star player, your athlete, the kid that you want the ball in his hand to impact the team's victories, right? To impact the game, right? In a spread type offense in high school anyway, right? Can you get the ball to your playmaker enough if he's not at quarterback? You know what I mean? Where in a triple, we'll put our best athlete at the quarterback spot, all right? So it's always in his hands, or put him at the B-back, you know what I mean? So he's getting that maximum amount of touches, you know what I mean? And maybe you're a team that has to play guys 2 ways or whatever. You have limited amount of numbers, but you have really good athletes on defense that don't come over and play offense. They can jump over at the slot, and they can not have to know the whole offense and catch a rocket toss and still have a huge impact on. I guess you could do the same thing by throwing them a fade, right? But it doesn't matter what offense you're in, you can throw a fade, right? But I'm just saying that I think you can get your athlete the ball in his hands more in a run-oriented offense, like running option. You know what I mean? Than you can in the air raid, unless you're slinging it every single time. But you got to be able to complete those passes, right? Where a run, you're handing it off, or you're just taking a snap, and you don't have to worry about that. And I don't know. I just compare the high school receivers in my area. They have good stats or whatever, but it's like 10 to 20 catches. Almost 10 touchdowns, something like that. Compare that to like a running back or quarterback in the option system where they have 100 touches. I'm not kidding. 100. I've seen a kid get 200 touches. You know what I mean? A running type quarterback. So the impact that kid has versus the receiver that's only getting the 10 to 20 catches, to me is, I don't know. I'm making.
Yeah.
You guys following what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You look like a smart coach, man, getting your dude the ball is what I'm trying to say.
I'm a spread guy, so I don't know what you're talking about. This is all this is French, Spanish.
Well, like even if your kid's not a quarterback, but he's an athlete, right? You put him in there, like a college recruiter's going to see his highlight film. Like, that's a dude right there. You know what I mean? He's got the ball. He's getting to showcase his talent versus a kid who's got, like I said, 50 hitch routes on his highlight. You know what I mean? I don't know. Kids aren't going to see it like I'm explaining it to you, but as a coach, you want the ball in your athlete's hands, man, to win the game. You know what I mean? And not have to depend on the quarterback to get it to him. You know what I mean? And could be incomplete. The protection could break down. I'm just saying, right? So it's okay if you don't agree with me, but I'm just saying that's how I process it in my mind. Because I had a kid in Jeffrey Hills in 2011. It was the 5th fastest kid in the state of Florida. I was excited. I looked at his stats. I was like, man, he had to have big time stats the year before. He had 8 touchdowns and 12 touches. They were like 2 and 8 or something like that. I was like, well, shit, that's why they were 2 and 8. He only had 12 touches. He had 8 touchdowns out of those 12 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, because you want your athlete on punt return, kick return, everything else. You know what I mean? Why not put him in the saddle, man, and run some quarterback or some B-back or some slot, you know what I mean, where he's getting the ball multiple times.
Yeah.
And the kid finished with over 100 touches, 24 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards. Rest is history. So I'm just saying, I'm a big believer in putting your athlete in a position where he can touch the ball. It don't matter what position he's in, but he's got to get them touches. You're going to look like a smart coach. You're going to win more ball games.
Yeah.
Whatever offense that is, I'm for it.
Yeah. No doubt.
Coach Steve, talk to me, man. Debate me. Your receivers, what kind of statistics are they? Are they getting 100 touches? No way, right?
No, but if in the spread, you can move them around. So like the school I was at, we were a huddle spread team. Now I know people don't hear that a lot, but we were huddle, and we could have, if we put someone in, we could say, hey, move him to the X or move him to here because we want to get him the ball. We're going to move him. When you break the huddle, they're not going to know. And then if you had multiple guys, well, you could do a jet motion or, we call it split zone. You do that a couple of times, do a rollout and give him the ball. There's different ways to do it.
Right.
But I think in a spread, because I'm a spread guy, but I think in a spread, you have to think a little more, if that makes sense. I think you have to be like, okay, how are you going to do this instead of being like a Veer option or even a wing T? Like it's easy. Like you're just going to toss him to this or move this guy. In a spread, you have to do it. But for us, we were 3-by-1 and 2-by-2, and that was it. Like we didn't get fancy or a 2-back, and that was it. So we were able to jet motion, or we might line that guy up in the backfield and just hand him the ball. Like, screw it. We're just going to hand him the ball and see what happens. Jailbreak screens, like you run the ball so much, you motion him, lineman can go out and you could do that. So for us, where I was at, I think it's by where you coach at too, like your experiences. Like if I just did option the whole time, that's what I would say. But I've been in it all. So like I've seen it all. So for me, that's what we did. And as a coach, it made you think like, okay, we were 10-1 that year. So we got to get weird. Like we were 7-0. Like what can we put in today that they can do? You just kept adding on. Right. So I think if you're 100% right, I'll never argue that that type of offense does that. Like the quarterback has the ball, you can pitch the ball to your guy, you can rocket toss it, do all that. Spread, you can do the same thing, but as a coach, you have to be able to recognize like you can't be stagnant. How are you going to get this kid the ball? It can't be, let's not have a 2-by-2. He stands here the whole time and never moves.
Right.
Or like key screens the whole time. No. Get a package in or just tell him to sub. I don't care. Tell him to go play tailback, go out to here, add this formation to move him here. Like it's simple. Like you said earlier, we make it complicated. Like it can be very simple. We just want to be, or the big thing is, oh, they did this on Saturday. This is what we're going to do now. Or I'll never forget a coach came in. I saw the Kansas City Chiefs do this Thursday night, so we're going to add it. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're the Kansas City Chiefs. Like that's Andy Reid. Don't be bringing that stuff in here in high school. Yeah. And so I think that's where coaches fall into a trap of like, they did this on Saturday. Like I do it though. I'll draw something up. And Coach Kurt Hines, I talked to him on my podcast and he said, wait, their playbook is this big. It's this big. Their spread team, it's this big. Because what happened was he started to watch Saturdays and it started to do this, started to do that. And so if they add something, they have to take something out.
Yeah.
And then they'll move guys around to get the ball. And so I think it's just how you coach it, how you can see what's going on, spread or not spread. As long as you can do that and adapt, I think you're fine, in my opinion. But I'm stupid simple, so I'm not always right.
No, no. Look, I think we could debate a lot about how you're going to get them the ball, right? But I think what it boils down to is understanding your own personnel, how to affect them and how to let them help you win the game, right? So just like you said, right? I got to take that receiver and put him in jet motion and hand him the ball, right? So, I mean, you got to know. And again, I think that's what we said earlier, forces you to be detailed, right? Coach, and to know what in the world's going on, right? If you're just grabbing at straws and throwing stuff and see if it sticks to the wall, that ain't very good. You know what I mean? So whatever you're in, if you're really having something that's simplistic, like you said, right? Your playbook's not very big, right? It forces you to be detailed. So I think that's positive stuff.
Because the year before, they only had like 2 or 3 guys that want to get the ball, maybe 2. And the next year there were some transfers that came in. So now you have these 2 receivers or running backs you could move. Well, what do? You motion them and they're looking at them and you do something else.
Yep.
So we adapted because the year before we didn't really when we motioned, it was just to get to a different formation. It was like, we're going to go 2x2, just motion to trips. And then we had this problem. Well, it's a good problem. Now we're starting to do fake jet motion and all that stuff. You adapted to try to figure out what to do. But you stayed the same. Everything stayed the same. So we just adapted to what we had. And a lot of coaches don't do that though. No, you're going to adapt to what I do. No, it has to be keep your core system, but then figure out what can they do. And then you go off of that. Like keep your core principles, but then like what else can we do to make them comfortable? And it's just muscle memory. They're dreaming about it. They're coming to practice. Coach, I dreamed that I read the 3 tech and then this happened. Like now you're getting it. I think you're like, now you're getting it. Like,
I think too, we always have to remember Flexbone really is a formation, series of formations, right? Like inside Veer is not exclusive to the Flexbone. Inside Veer is its own entity. You can run inside Veer out of split back Veer, split backs, wishbone, you know what I mean? Eye bone. I mean, pick something, right? Inside Veer is its own scheme. So I think a lot of people obviously, I think they marry the two together a lot, but in reality, Flexbone's a series of formations, right? So, I think we always have to kind of remember that. It's just a way to get more guys the ball. So just like your formations are 2x2 to 3x1 the one year, right? Right. So you're 2x2, right? For the most part, that's your base in Flexbone, right? So, and I think, I've seen people be very, very, very successful in a zone dive and mid triple the first year they ever run option stuff. You know what I mean? Rocket, mid triple, zone dive. And that's, play actions off of that. That's it. Be very successful. Beat the snot out of people, right? So, and it was just, what you're familiar with and what you like to do. So I like it. I like all of it. That's my problem.
That's my thing is I love offense. Any offense I watch, I'll watch anybody in college. Now NFL, I can only watch so much of it, but college, I watch it all. And so on Coach Sheffers, I always say, like, I love everything. Why do you guys keep saying I'm a spread guy? I'll watch everything. I know I can pick up what you're putting down a little bit when you talk about it. Like, I understand and the gist of it. So, but that is my problem. I'll see something, I draw it up. I'm like, we could do that. I'll text the head coach, Steve, shut up. Put that in there.
Yeah.
Be adding what you're seeing. So I take a lot of your guys' time, and so we can wrap it up. I know Coach Sheffer asked you this question on his. I wasn't going to ask it because he did, but on my college football recap, me and my 2 friends were Illini fans, unfortunately. So we have like an Illinois sadness half-hour discussion.
Yeah, but you just won a game, man. You're fired up.
We're not happy. I'm not happy about it at all. Like, it was Rutgers. I'm not happy about a win against
It's
Rutgers.
a win, my man. Come on. Those are hard to come by, no matter who you play. Hey, you know what's important about that game? They put a kid from Illinois in and won him the game. So remember that.
I think he went to East St. Louis. The quarterback, he went to East St. Louis, I think, which is in Illinois.
There you go, dude.
But so Coach Sheffer always give me, he asked you guys who should run, like a Power 5, who should run the Flexbone or wing tee or whatever.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to ask that because, like, you guys have already been that. But it got brought up on Sunday to me, like, Steve, are you ready to accept that Paul Johnson or Munkin, who I know his family because they're in Illinois.
They're in Illinois guys, yeah.
Well, Bill Munkin coached at Charleston, and Jeff is his nephew. And then a lot of them coach up here in the Chicagoland, like Matt. There's a Matt Munkin, Ted Munkin, and all of them. And are you ready to accept Paul Johnson to come out of retirement to Illinois? Are you ready for Munkin to go there? Are you ready for, Coach Ken to go there? And I'd always say no. And on Sunday, I said, let's do it. As long as it's pistol, I am good with it. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
As long as I get some type of spread look to it, I'm good. And I said, no, I'm kind of done. I love Lovie Smith, but Illinois is just kind of, it makes me mad. So I guess I'll ask just because Who do you think would benefit from a Monken or a Coach Ken, or if Paul Johnson ever comes out of retirement, which I think he's done, but who could benefit? Is it Illinois? Is it South Carolina? Because they have an opening now. Like, who would benefit
Nothing
from?
can fix them, Coach.
I said Coach Babers. I love Coach Babers. He could go turn around, but that's just me.
I'm gonna throw you a curveball. You ready?
I'm ready.
Mississippi State.
No. Hey, I'll take Mike Leach to come to Illinois.
Yeah.
I'll bring him to Giordano's Pizza myself if he shows up.
There you go. Yeah. That's a good one. Look, we do get asked this question a lot, and it's fine. I
wasn't going to until Illinois.
No.
It's playing so bad.
But hey, they won anyway. So I would say that honestly, you're going to have to find a program that has conviction enough from the whole athletic department down. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Athletic director, assistant athletic directors, strength coaches, program down, all the way from the top. That's willing to sacrifice maybe some of the popularity of an offense of today to win some games, right? So
Mm-hmm.
who is that? Well, to be honest with you, all right, that could be several different teams across the United States. Power 5, Group of 5, 1AA, well, FCS, sorry, I'm old, Division 2. And so, I think if you look at the teams that have been option related or option based, right? So just take Coastal Carolina, for example, this year, right? So they're in a gun, right? They're going to run option principles, a lot of plays, right? And look, they're ranked for the first time. They're doing well. And so I think you really have to take a look at who's willing to make that commitment. It's easy for Georgia Southern. They've always been an option team since Irk Russell came out of the mud. You know what I mean? Like, so it's easy for that program because they already have that identity. You know what I mean? And I think, like I said, with Coach Sheffer's podcast, I think Paul Johnson created a historical positive with the Flexbone at Georgia Tech. I mean, they won games, they did well. I don't necessarily think it has to be an academy type school or a high academic school. I really don't. I think you can take these principles and apply it to any situation. So, we could say Stanford, Vanderbilt, whoever, but I don't think it has to be that per se. I think it needs to be a school that wants to win, wants to change their identity, and has the ability to be patient. You know what I mean? And know that, you may hear a little grumbling here and there, right? But if you can win, you're going to bring those guys back to the fannies in the seat, right? So is that Illinois? I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe. I think if you want some relevance, we're going to want to consider it some way or another. Gun, under center, however you want to look at it. If you want some relevance, you need to start looking at it. So I guess I didn't really answer your question, but.
I know South Carolina's looking for a coach.
Hey, you can't fix them, buddy.
Oh, South Carolina, Michigan. I mean,
that'll be open soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's true. He's not going yet, but you got to think that's coming, right? Penn State, those two guys are on the hot seat right now. I hear on the TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a shame, right? Like, let's take Penn State for example, right? I mean, come on, right? They've been good. We got a lot going on right now. It's not easy to coach football. So hey, I understand it's big business. It is. You swing from millions of dollars, millions on top of millions of dollars, right? With wins and losses, you swing. Your whole program swings. I get it. But we're in a little bit of an unprecedented time, right? So, I mean, look, South Carolina, whatever, who cares, right? But Penn State, that's different.
Maybe we need one of those.
No
teams.
bias at all. No bias. But, you know.
We need one of those teams on the Maction. You know how Thursday night or whatever, Wednesday night, when Maction comes on?
The Mac Attack? Yeah.
We need a Flexbone team in the Mac Attack, man. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's what I told Coach Sheffer. I said, I don't know if it'll ever happen with a Power 5 yet. It needs to happen outside of Army and Navy. It needs to be a Mac Attack. It needs to be some sub Power 5 or sub Division 1. And then it will slowly move up. I know Coach Ken almost got to Arizona until that quarterback tweeted what he tweeted, and then karma bit them and they was terrible. But it needs to happen something like that. And you know, I just asked that because what happened with Illinois, they were like, Steve, are you ready to open up your heart to this? And I was like, I think I am. I think I'm done watching what I'm watching with Illinois, and that's why I watch.
I was gonna say, I'll be honest, I forget Illinois has a football team sometimes. You know what I mean?
Man, it's daggers tonight, man. Daggers.
Hey, but Florida State is terrible this year, man. They've been pretty terrible. I like the coach there from Memphis, you know, but they haven't been good this year. I know they beat North Carolina that was undefeated or something like that. But didn't they? Yeah,
they did. Yeah.
So I mean, maybe he's turning it around, but you know, you got to be thinking like a Florida State maybe even. You know what I mean? But I don't know.
Well, Illinois is a basketball school, so.
Yeah. I don't know if somebody will take a risk on them, you know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean,
I shouldn't say risk. Take a chance on them.
Yeah, Illinois is number 8 in the nation in basketball, so that's what we look forward to is basketball.
Yeah.
Football last year went to the Red Box Bowl. They got their. My friend goes, they got their movie and they got to watch a football game as they went to the Red Box Bowl.
Well, the last time I remember, not Syracuse, Illinois being pretty good was Ron Zirk, was it?
Ron Zook, yeah.
And they had the juice right at the quarterback.
Yeah, they beat. So Ron Zook could recruit. He was when he was at Florida. He helped recruit Tim Tebow. Like he was the guy that did that, and he could recruit. It was just coaching. He could recruit like nobody's business. I mean, we beat Ohio State when they were number 1 in the nation at Ohio State with juice, and then I think it was 2010 or 11. We beat Baylor in a bowl game when they had Robert Griffin III, and then we just kind of went this way, and then Lovie Smith shows up, and we're just sitting there. It's hard to recruit when you have Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan all in the Big Ten, and then Indiana looks good now. I love watching them; they look really good now. And my friend knows the strength and conditioning guy there, so I watch it from that aspect, and he tells me what they've adapted, and I watch them. Like I see what you're talking about. Like me and him are gonna do a podcast, and it's gonna be like 3 hours because of everything he has to talk about. But watching it from that aspect is like, let's get them to Illinois, or I want Mike Leach to show up. That's just my thing.
End of the day, man, that's it. Tom Allen, man, he's been fun to watch this year. That's for sure. Love that guy, man.
Yeah.
He used to coach down in Tampa at USF. And that quarterback he has is from Tampa. You know, we played against him, and he torched us, man, back in high school. He's good, Mike Penix. Mm-hmm. He's good, man. He's good. But they're kind of the Cinderella this year, aren't they?
And they play Ohio State, and we're kind of rooting for Indiana. I never thought I'd say that because I don't like Ohio State. I cannot stand them. So I'm just kind of like, all right, Indiana.
Yep.
He's all right, well, I take it. Genuine head coach, I think. You know what I mean? He just is awesome.
And he has a good tackling form.
Yes.
All of his injuries.
Yeah, I was going to say, you see the injuries all come up, his injury report from celebrating? That's awesome.
And then you got Lovie Smith standing there with his arms crossed and never moves. I was like, I want that guy on Indiana to be running up and down, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I've taken a lot of your guys' time. I appreciate you guys being here. We talked a lot of rambling on, but that's fine. We're in COVID.
No, man, it was fun. Heck yeah. Yeah, great. Anytime we can talk football, I think it's a short list of reasons to come on and talk. So, yeah, that was fun. No, thanks for having us, right? So.
Yeah, I appreciate you having us, man.
No, I appreciate it. Anybody that listens, go check out their Meshpoint podcast. And then whenever you get the Meshpoint chat, did I say that right? That's coming up eventually on Monday nights. I'll have to look out for that again. Twitter's blown up during this off-season COVID, so it's all over.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys once again. There, wear your masks so we can get back to normal at some point in life.
No doubt. Yeah.
And I'll see everybody later.
All right, man. Thanks for having us on. Take care.
Viva la triple.
Viva la triple, baby. Viva la triple.